I have invited, I'm excited about this part. This is completely unscripted, so it should be fun. Always, right? I have invited a few recently new faculty who, my gosh, all of you are fairly deeply invested in major college initiatives already. So there are a few recently new faculty here who are just going to take a few minutes and share your tips for survival, because they've just ridden the new faculty roller coaster, right? So they can tell you all about it and what you can do. So come on up and introduce yourselves and just drop your wonderful knowledge on these people. If you don't mind, you can just hold this in your hand. You don't have to actually wear it, but this is a microphone and also tracks the video so that we can get you on video in case Sonia wants to, review it or whatever if you say anything bad.
Good.
But feel free to speak honestly. I'm just saying.
Okay.
Yeah, and don't read introduce you.
Okay, great. Hi, my name is Sarah Barron. I am a new, I've been here going on my third year now, and I teach in allied health. I teach a new program called Public Health Sciences, and I'm a faculty of one in my department. Well, actually, not really a department. I'm just a faculty of one, so I kind of had to kind of get my grounding that way. So I just made a really short kind of David Letterman's list, And I probably should start with go backwards. Okay, this will go really quick. So actually, I'll go first. Students come first. They always come first. Everything I do is about them. They have a fear factor, and I'm curious to see how many of you guys are adjunct in here. Yeah, and when I was an adjunct, so I came in brand new. I was adjunct in 1990, so I don't know if that counts. It's been a while, and so I'd get this kind of like a little bit of a kind of aggressive thing going on, or distance looking, and then later on they'd come in my office and start crying. So don't misinterpret that. At first I was like, what's going on? Oh, books. The first 2 weeks they just say they don't have books, but it's so important for me to have a book in my class. So I do things like put a book in the library, or I've made it open so they can use any edition they want. That's me. I'm also into open educational resources, so everyone's a little bit different about that, but I don't want the book to be the issue. And I know financial aid covers the books, but the reality is books are so expensive, and it just tears it up. So that's just me. Know where your classroom is, and make sure you can get into. I know that sounds like duh, right? Captain Obvious, Dr. Obvious here, but I have my keys, and what I'm doing now is just going in, opening the classroom. Did the padlock change on the LCD projector? Have you guys ever gone in and you're like, what? So, just. It happened to me this morning. Yeah, and you're just like, what did this happen? So just do that. Boundaries, I have my pet peeves, and so I've decided, I kind of went lax on it last semester, and then I noticed that it came all back. So my pet peeves are, texting, going crazy with texting. Just cannot stand that. I love to use e-devices, but please, And then I hate when people pack up when I'm finishing up. So those are just, your pet. Get them out there. Committee work. I just came from a guided pathways thing, and I'm going to go back to it. For me, I found that just a little bit of committee work is good, and guided pathways gave me kind of like a big grounding idea, because I didn't, again, come from academia. And when I got here the first 2 years, I felt very lost the first year. And I didn't feel connected because I was a program of one. And so it really helped me to get that view. And then do social stuff. Canvas rocks. I love Canvas. If you're not using it, use it. Post your syllabi at least. And there's a syllabi checklist that if you don't have it, get it, because it's wonderful. I like student life. Nikki DeMania is awesome, and so any of my breakdowns, or if I was really worried about a student who's about to really need support, you'll see some things. So I take advantage of that, and Nikki DeMania is my go-to person there. And then there's also the health center, and then that's it. Oh, and figure out the person that you want to ask questions to, and if you ever have any questions, feel free to ask. I think that was quick. Okay, who's next? There you go.
I was afraid whoever went before me was going to take all my ideas, so I'm jumping up. And to kind of segue from where she left off, I was so pleasantly surprised about the level of resources that we have here for the students, the support that I found, and each department's different. She's by herself, so she probably didn't feel the same support that I did. I'm in the art department. I'm so sorry. I'm Ronnie Rest, art history in the art department. And I've worked at other schools. I worked adjunct in the Central Valley, Reedley, Clovis, Fresno area. And it was great. It was a good experience. But coming down here, the support that I felt, not only in my department, but on campus, has been very, very relieving and wonderful. So you guys are hopefully in a good department, in a good place. And the resources for the students are amazing. She mentioned a couple. Get to know Nikki. Have they met Nikki yet? No. Okay, get to know Nikki. You'll meet him probably in the first few new faculty meetings. I had a whole array of different students in my classrooms that had issues for a number of different reasons. I had one trans student who was being bullied and discriminated, and I was able to get her hooked up with Nikki, and their office just has a ton of good resources for a number of different things. So utilize those resources. There's a ton of them here. Students can use the Writing Center, the Math Lab, tons of tutoring. So take advantage of those things. I had a list too. I think segueing from that, most of you probably got hired understanding how important diversity is. That's a big initiative for community colleges right now anyways. Our student population is, if this number is still accurate, it's a couple years old, but around 62% Hispanic. With the new administration, there's a lot of anxiety. I think it's lessened some from November, but understand that you have DACA students, you have undocumented students. You very well may have homeless students in your class, and that doesn't mean you need to have all the answers, but know where you can send students, what support is there. Nikki will touch on a lot of those things as well. You're going to see a lot of different things, and I don't say that to scare you, but to help you understand that there are resources for every issue that you'll run into. So just be aware of that. Know you're going to make mistakes. There was a ton of times that I didn't say the right thing, and that's okay. And you'll learn as you go this year, and you'll probably be overwhelmed at some point this year. I went from having an average of 40 students at the schools that I came from to 120 students in my classes here. And when I was told that, I smiled and said, no problem. And it all worked out, and it went well. But I had a ton of days where I didn't know how I was going to get through all the grading. But you do, and you learn how to provide your students with the best that you can. And it was a great first year here. So I think I'll leave it with that and let these guys add to that.
All right. Before somebody takes my stuff. Hi, I'm Brian Seveson. I am in the Performing Arts Department. I teach theater. Last year was my first year here, but I was adjunct for a few years before that. And one thing I'll tell you about the transition, where's Chris Tyner? How many years have you been here as adjunct? 13 and a half years as an adjunct, and then he got full-time, and they showed him things. What's that? Who's counting? And then he was like, I have to share an office with him, or he has to share one with me. But he was like, they showed him things he'd never seen on campus before, right? They like hide them for you, secret passageways and like little rooms where you can hang out. Like where, oh, there's a refrigerator in that room. Secret passageways, by the way. They really are. They're in the theater. So here's what I have. You're going to be inundated with information, and we're adding to that right now. So don't be afraid to ask questions, even about things that you've already been told. And you should be really nice to the people that might have the answers, because you might need another question answered later. As far as technology goes, I agree. The resources are great, but you should always have a plan B. Because if you come prepared with a lesson and then the technology isn't what you need, your class, it's blown if that's all you had planned. So have a plan B, maybe a plan C, just to fall back on. The book issues they talked, so you're going to say this a lot. I can't believe that, ... right? I can't believe that students are in my class for 6 weeks and still don't have a book. I can't believe that students will show up to class with no materials. I can't believe a student will miss 6 weeks of class and then show up and think they're still in the class. You're going to say that a lot. So don't be surprised when you're surprised. And just be willing to adjust the best you can within like the guidelines of your policy. As far as your syllabus goes, you want to be more specific than you think you need to be. Okay? My first semester as a adjunct, I had a class out in Delano, and I talked about it in, first of all, you can't fail students for not showing up. Attendance is not part of the grade. I'm sure you've heard that, or you will. Participation is part of the grade. So you have to put that in your syllabus. But I was clear that if you missed more than 2 classes, you would get docked a grade. So that's what my syllabus said, right? So this guy missed 2 classes, and then he showed up for 5 minutes to classes 3 different times. The first 5 minutes 3 times, and the last 5 minutes the 4th time. So I docked the guy. He did all the extra credit, right? So he earned an A except for the fact that he missed all those classes. So I ended up giving him a B. And this guy, what do they do? They contest it. What's the word? Yeah, he filed with the dean. So the dean calls me, and it's my first semester here, right? So I'm freaking out. And I'm like, well, I don't know what to do. I mean, the guy, like I said, so the dean asked me, he said, well, what did it say in your syllabus? I said, it said that if you missed 2 classes, he said, but it didn't say if they only showed up for 5 minutes. No. I mean, isn't that common sense, you know? And the dean said to me, I can't tell you what to do, but your syllabus doesn't quite say that. So you have to say it. So I wasn't going to fight. It was my first semester. Maybe if I was here for 10 years, I'd be like, I'll die on this hill. Was not willing to do it. So they showed us a syllabus. I don't remember who it was, but it was like 4 pages in like 8-point font. And I'm like, seriously? All of that? I'm not doing that. And then like I taught, and I'm like, yeah, I should do that. Because you want to have something to fall back on. So yeah, with the book issues, it's amazing. Like I had probably half of my class never bought the book for a stagecraft class I taught. What they did was they just took pictures of each other's books. And that's what they would do to like read the chapter. So I don't know how legal that is, but that's not my fight. And so, you know, as long as they can get the access to material, I guess that's okay. So be ready for that. I did Summer Bridge this summer, and you know, working with the kids and walking around learning. And I had kids that ask me questions like, "How much is a parking pass?" And I'm like, "That's a great question, man." So I'd go ask, and they'd be like, $30. I'd be, oh, $30. And then they'd be like, "Okay, how much is a parking ticket?" Oh yeah, that's a good question, right? So all this I learned at Summer Bridge. And it's things that, like, if you don't know anything about what the kids' experiences are, right? You're like, I'm your professor. I don't worry about your stupid, but it helps, right? So I guess be willing to get that information, because the more you can support the students on the things that aren't necessarily related to your class, but are very much related to their experience, I think it helps. So what is it? If they get 1 parking ticket, it's the same price as the parking pass. So why take your chances, right? Just get the parking. Then the kid, I swear, this kid had like 10 questions in a row about parking. What if I have 2 cars? Do I have to get 2 parking passes? That's a great question. Let me go check, right? And the answer is no. You could peel the sticker off and keep putting it on your car every once in a while, but they reckon. So anyway, yeah, have this way. Finally, know how your classes fit into the big picture. You know, they're going to talk to you probably about pathways and about trying to move students on. In theater, I was surprised to find out that we have 100 declared theater majors at this college. That's crazy, right? They're all going to go and make it. Don't you doubt them. We average 2 AAs per year. Yeah, right? Do the math on that. So I brought this kid in. He's been here 7 years, right? And he's a great actor. He's going to be the lead for me in Hamlet and Current Shakespeare Festival. Come check it out. End of September. Plug. He's got great kid, great actor. And I brought him in. I'm like, so how close are you to graduating? He's like, well, I've been here 7 years. I've got to be close, right? This kid's got at least 3 semesters of gen ed left. At least, right? So just kind of, especially if you get to know kids, like, you know, ask them, like, what's your plan, man? You know, when you finish this class, what are you doing next? So if you have a chance to do that, I know you're going to be overwhelmed teaching, and that's your first priority. But if you can connect with a couple kids on that, yeah, it's important because, you know, getting through your class is great, but if that's all they do, you know, then we're not necessarily doing the best of our abilities. Thank you.
Go get them. All right, my name's Jeff Houston. I teach with Ronnie in the art department. I teach media arts, which is video production and animation. So my first semester teaching here, I didn't come from a lot of teaching backgrounds. I came from working in video production, and so working here full-time was the first time I've really ever experienced a full load of teaching. And I'm just breaking stuff. And so that may be some of you, that may be none of you. But for me, the biggest thing I wanted to take away is, like, you're going to make mistakes, and that's okay. And I want to emphasize that with a quick story. When I first got here, I was told, hey, you're going to teach art appreciation for your first semester. I'm like, okay. Haven't really done that before, but let's do it. And so because there's so many classes, I was put into one of the science building lecture rooms. And so I get in there, I have 60 or 80 students. I get up in front of the class, I'm scared out of my mind, but that's okay. I settle down, and I only sweated through 1 or 2 shirts that day. But the big thing I knew I needed to do is I'm like, I need to take attendance. And so I printed out my attendance sheet, I put it down at the front of class, and I told the class, hey, when you guys come in and when you guys leave, please sign your attendance sheet. I also knew that if someone who was registered for the class didn't sign my attendance sheet, they needed to be dropped because they weren't there. And so after the first day, I had 5 or 6 students who didn't sign the attendance sheet. I went through the class, dropped them, new students got added, and that's how the process went. The second week, I had a student come up to me, and she's like, I signed up for your class, but now I'm dropped, and I've been to every class. And this student was in a wheelchair. And I say that because the lecture buildings in the science lab do not have a ramp down to the front of the class. And so I inadvertently dropped a gal because she couldn't make it down to the front of my class to sign the attendance sheets. It turned out to be okay. We went and I got the ad form, and I learned how to do that. But that was one of those things that I learned that, okay, not only do I need to make sure that my classroom, that I follow all the guidelines, but I also need to make sure my classroom is conducive for students who cannot, may have disabilities that prevent them from performing some, what I consider a simple act, as signing my attendance sheet. And that, and that carried over to my media arts room, where I have a lot of computers in computer labs. I suddenly realized I cannot assume that students have computers at home to complete my assignments. And so I need to make sure my lab is available for students to complete their assignments. I cannot assume that a student necessarily has constant access to the internet, to complete online assignments. And so I need to make them available of different resources. And so that was a really big learning curve for me, just kind of getting used to, okay, my student population doesn't necessarily have all the access to information and technology that I might have access to. And so that was, and so that's something I kind of want you guys to think about as you're setting up your classrooms, as you're, doing something as simple as taking attendance. Is everybody able to take attendance in your class? And that's really the big takeaway. The second thing I want you guys to keep in mind is I like how everybody here is really talking about this is really all about your students. But in addition to that, your first semester, you're going to be completely overwhelmed. And so I want to challenge you guys, as you're completely overwhelmed, to try to find balance in your personal lives. I believe really firmly that if you're not taking care of yourself, you're not going to be able to take care of your students. And so whatever that might mean for you. For me, it means I like to go hiking and bike riding. So I try to set aside time either daily or weekly to do that. And for whatever that means for you guys, I'd really encourage you guys to try to find time to take care of yourself, take care of your personal life, if you have families, take care of your families and make sure that you are healthy as an individual, so that way you can make sure your students are healthy. Those were the two big things I picked up from last semester. So, thanks, guys.
Thank you. All right. Good morning, everybody. Hey, congratulations. Welcome. I'm looking to see who I can recruit for AIQ and strategic directions. A lot of what I wanted to talk about has already been discussed. I came in here thinking there's really just 3 points of advice that I would offer to you in order to be a successful faculty member. The first being make friends with experienced faculty, and the second being get involved fearlessly, and the third being plan ahead. So the first point, every department does this a little bit differently. My department assigned me a faculty buddy. So I was assigned Joyce Kirst, who had been here for over 20 years. And it was amazing for me to have a mentor who I could just go down the hall and talk to, because there's going to be so much that you're not going to know. And, there's so much information that's going to be thrown out at you today, and we don't even know what we don't know until you start getting asked questions and you're like, I have no idea. And so Joyce was amazing my first 2 years. I don't know if I would have gotten through the first year without her. And she retired last year, but as I became more involved, there are people like Kimberly Bly, my chair, who was the director of Summer Bridge, and Nick Strobel, professor of astronomy, Jennifer Johnson, the chair of nursing. These are all people that I've worked with very closely over the last year. Bill, I'm starting to work with now. I'm not real sure about him yet. We'll see. But really, the people who have been here and are experienced, they want us to succeed. And so kind of seek a few of those out, and don't be afraid to ask them questions. That would be my first piece of advice. The second is get involved fearlessly, and I say that because I'm a perfectionist by nature, and so kind of my thought when I started my first year was I'm going to stay under the radar, I'm going to focus on my classes, get good evaluations, and kind of go from there. Well, that was my plan, and my plan didn't work out, because during my second semester here, I get a call from Sonia saying, Jessica, let's meet in my office. And within a couple of weeks, she had me working on the statewide California Guided Pathways project. And I just passed her now coming in here, and I still get nervous around her. She's so friendly and so nice, but, scary too. And, but it's hard to believe that I went to an ACCJC accreditation conference. You're going to hear so much about accreditation at opening day. It's one of the major things that we're working on right now. And I was at a conference last semester sitting there having dinner with Sonia and with Bill. And Sonia asked me, what can I do to make it easier for new faculty to get involved? And we kind of had a really nice conversation. And I realized sort of after the conversation that she's really doing what she can. What maybe doesn't get told enough is that we're not expected to know everything, and it's okay if we mess up. I tell my students, you got to learn from your failures, and I think as faculty we need to do that too. I am the chair of the accreditation committee coming in this fall, okay, and I'm very nervous about that, but I was told by the president of our academic senate, look, there's a learning curve. You're going to mess up, but you're going to catch on. And that's the attitude of the people who are leading. So don't be afraid to get involved. Getting involved is how you learn about BC. And the third point is to plan ahead. I'm going to say plan ahead in terms of parking. I don't know if you had trouble parking this morning. I did. If you aren't teaching at 8 o'clock in the morning, you want to plan here be here like an hour at least before your classes start so you can find a place to park. And we are hiring faster than we're building new parking, and kind of know your different locations. But I would also say I wanted to put in a plug for Guided Pathways and specifically Summer Bridge. Summer Bridge is a major initiative in terms of on-ramping. What are we doing to get students on their paths? And Summer Bridge is over now, but next summer, and it's so cool to see so many familiar places. I think a lot of you did Summer Bridge this summer. Yay. If you didn't, Summer Bridge is a fantastic professional development opportunity for you to come and learn so much about the campus. It's what I did my first summer before I started teaching in the fall. And as far as learning about BC, doing the tour of the campus, all the different services available, it's a 10-hour day, and you're tired, but you get paid to be there. And you get to work with the students and really learn about them. So definitely be thinking about Summer Bridge and other ways to get involved. Thank you.
Hello. Do I have to push this? Okay. Okay. Can y'all hear me? Okay, hi. My name is Faith. I'm a librarian here at BC. This will be my 3rd year. So I have some tips for y'all. Basically, I feel like a lot of people talked about them already, but my main takeaway is that I think y'all should get involved on campus. I know that's sort of a big push from admin right now, but I think it was really valuable for me to get involved these last 2 years. Really feel like I know campus a lot better and the people on here a lot better than I would have otherwise. So some of the things I did were I joined committees. I'm in the library. We only have 5 people in our department, so when we try to be represented on all the committees, so we have to be on a few. But so I know not everyone has to be, but I think it was a really good way for me to get to know a lot more about BC a lot quicker than I would have otherwise. So I'm on the assessment committee, which was really helpful for me to know how assessment is conducted, obviously, but also just how various departments work on campus. I'm also on College Council, which is just great because you get all the inside scoop. So I know all the campus gossip, which is awesome. So if you can get involved with committees, it's just a really quick way to get to know campus a lot better than you would have otherwise. So that's definitely a good way to start. I also think it's really important to try to get outside of your department a little bit. I know that's not always easy. We sort of get stuck in our own departments, and especially for teaching faculty like y'all, you might get stuck in your office, not even know your own department that well. So I think whenever possible, it's really important to get out there, make friendships with faculty not necessarily in your discipline, and maybe even try to make partnerships with other people. So I made a lot of friends at my new faculty orientation because mine was also like 50 people or something like that. So I still have some friends from that, so that's great. But I've also tried to reach out to different organizations on campus that I think are good for the library to work with, and that's also helped me understand campus a lot better. For example, I have a partnership with awesome people at the Student Health Center now, and we've started a thing on campus called De-Stress Fest that happens during finals where students get to come and, you know, pet puppies or do crafts and stuff like that so they can feel a little less stressed and learn about mental health resources on campus. So that's beneficial to students, but it's also helpful for me because now I know a lot more about health services than I would have. I have friends, you know, so all of that's really good, especially just because I do think in academia we tend to get stuck in our own little bubble, so that's always a good reminder. And my last thing is I was going to make another plug for Summer Bridge because I think it's really important to get to know the campus and get to know the things that our students are actually dealing with. As a librarian, that's really important for me because students come to me and ask me all these questions about campus. In my first year, I was like, I have no idea. I have no idea where that building is. I'm so sorry, because they don't necessarily give you a tour when you start here as a faculty member, right? So I think if you haven't been on a tour of campus, if you're not from here, you didn't go to BC. I'm from Texas. I didn't go to BC. I didn't know anything about the campus. It's really important to go on a tour. And I waited basically a whole year to get a really thorough tour of campus. When I started doing Summer Bridge, the summer after I started here, I took the tour of campus that's included with Summer Bridge. And I was like, oh my goodness, this is so bad. I've not been giving my students all the information that they could have used this whole year. I went into the Student Services building, found out way more about all of the services that we offer our students than I knew. Also figured out ways the library could work with all those student services, and I was like, oh my gosh, I feel so stupid that I didn't do this before now. So I would definitely, if you haven't yet, go over and check out the Student Services building because there's so many things in there that are going to be really beneficial to your students. Also, if a librarian has not talked to you yet, you can order books with us, and we'll also teach your classes how to do research, so definitely get in contact with us. But I think that's pretty much all I had, yeah.
Awesome. Thank you all so much. Before they run out of here, does anybody have any questions for the recently new faculty or the not so new faculty? Yes.